Hi Equals, it's Kim, and this is the fourth and final video in my series for straight people on how to answer SOGIE data collection questions. So SOGIE, as a reminder, sexual orientation, gender, identity, and expression. If you take the first letters of those words, SOGIE, they spell out SOGIE. I'll try to put that right down here. Why even ask SOGIE questions, demographic questions? Well, if you can't count something, you can't identify needs, you can't potentially solve a problem you don't know you have, you have to be able to count. You have to be able to say, there are so many LGBT people in my community and their needs are. And if you can't identify them, you can't solve those problems. And I'll link videos up here about the overrepresentation of LGBT people, at least anecdotally. Ohio's not very good at counting yet. We're working on it. But the overrepresentation of LGBT, especially young people, in the homelessness system, in the juvenile justice system, in the foster care system. You know, when you've, in say the homelessness system, youth homelessness, 40%, at least anecdotally from other parts of the world and the country, are going to be LGBT. Can you think of the reduction in numbers we could have if we could at least solve youth homelessness for LGBT kids? Or, you know, are they white LGBT kids? Are they LGBT kids of color? What exactly are we dealing with? And unless you count, folks, you aren't going to be able to know what your local situation is. So the other thing is, you can't just count people you think are LGBT, because straight folks, let's just face it, you're not awfully good at figuring out who all is LGBT. LGBT people are not overly good at figuring out who all is LGBT. We look like everyone. I know there are certain stereotypes that you were taught to identify, but they are not overly accurate. So in order to get an accurate picture of the LGBT population in any space that you're talking about, you need to ask everyone the question. Everyone. And in doing that, a lot of straight, cisgender, traditionally feminine or masculine men and women need to answer the questions too. And it's really not that hard. So check out the previous videos so that you can see how to answer those questions. But here's some ways that you might see those questions. Here's a really bad way that we sometimes see these questions, particularly gender identity. You'll see, you know, in the space where you usually identify what your gender or sex is, you will see male, female, other. Other is a really bad option. First of all, we don't want to other people. Othering people is just not a good way to go about this. Male, female, transgender, slightly better. Male, female, fill in the blank, probably better, but not quite as good at tracking data, because that fill in the blank is a little bit hard to put into like a survey result. So sometimes the question, the gender identity question, will appear as follows. So there'll be a question that says, what was your sex or gender assigned at birth? So this is what was originally put on your birth certificate. Generally, M or F. That's kind of beginning to change a little bit now, but M or F is generally what was put on your birth certificate. So you would answer the M or the F. Another question after that might be, how do you identify now? Male, female. Might be an option to say gender nonconforming, or non-binary, or something else like this. And if you're not gender nonconforming, you're not non-binary, don't worry about those things. Don't let them confuse you. If you're not those, you're either an M or an F as an adult. Don't worry about what those other ones are. They weren't meant for you, all right? So they weren't meant for you. So then there might be another question, right, that says, how would your friends describe you? Very masculine, somewhat masculine, androgynous, or some other word like that, somewhat feminine, very feminine. And you would answer that. How would your friends describe you? Just answer. It's easy, right? And then the people who are sorting data will take those kind of 3 questions, your sex assigned at birth or gender assigned at birth, how you identify now, and how your friends would describe you, and they can get a pretty good picture of, are you transgender? Are you gender nonconforming? From those 3 questions. Most of you out there, all my straight friends out there, this one's easy. Like for me, I was female on my birth certificate. I still identify as female, and my friends would probably describe me as somewhat feminine. Doesn't hurt me. It's easy. It's not complicated. So that's gender identity and to some extent expression and how you'd find those. All right. What about sexual orientation? Well, the question may, if it's geared more towards adults, actually ask you, what is your sexual orientation? Might have 4, maybe 5, maybe more, depending on how sophisticated they are. Answers: heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, asexual, two-spirit. Might be a couple others if it's a more sophisticated survey. But I'm aiming this at my straight audience, so we'll keep it simple. So those are the usual options. The question could ask you, like, who are you attracted to? Or who are you, sometimes it'll ask you, who are you sexually attracted to? That's not, it's kind of a question. But who are you sexually attracted to? And it'll say male, female, both. And you just answer it. And if you're heterosexual, like if I were heterosexual as a female, I would mark, if I was heterosexual, male. All right. And it's not that complicated. You could also be attracted, romantically attracted to a different sex than you are physically attracted to. And I'm afraid most SOGIE data collection situations are not going to be sophisticated enough to ask those kinds of questions. It also means that we often can't ask that question of young people in schools. Not that we can't. We often have difficulty asking those questions of young people in schools because when you use the word sexually, now it becomes a sex question and, becomes problematic. Anyway, those are some of the ways that those questions may appear on surveys or on forms that you're filling out. The question is being asked of everyone. Often there's an opt-out. Choose not to say. You may just be told you can skip a question. You may have, just not say, I don't want to answer that question. Okay, don't. It's not complicated. It's the fact that you're being asked the question does not say anything about you. So if you're the kind of person that if somebody asks you about your sexual orientation and gender identity, you get all defensive because you think that person is implying something about you, that you look gay or you look transgender or something like that. No, they're asking the question of everyone. And that's as it should be. Anyway, folks, this ends my series on SOGIE data collections for straight cisgender people. I hope it's been helpful to some of you. If you enjoy my videos, please give me a thumbs up. Hit the red subscribe button. You can tap the bell, which will notify you every time I put up a new video. And if I don't talk to you before then, have a great weekend, equals.